Channel open. Welcome back to WeeklyTrek, a Star Trek news podcast presented by TrekCore.com. I am your host, Alex Perry.
What's today's date? The date.
Today's show was recorded on November 26th, 2025, and is current through Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3, so beware of spoilers. All right, let's get into the show.
Good day, Voyager, and welcome to A Briefing with Neelix. It's a catchy title, isn't it?
WeeklyTrek is a regular news show covering the biggest stories from the Star Trek franchise. We are in the Alex Kurtzman era of Star Trek with the 12th television show currently in production and 14 movies to enjoy, and merchandise continuing to fill the Bajoran wormhole. So stick with me and I'll help you sort the real facts from a lot of the Dominion propaganda that you'll find online. But I can't do this alone, and my guest this week is returning guest and the co-host of the Infinite Diversity podcast is Thad Hait. Thad, welcome back to WeeklyTrek.
Always happy to be here.
All right, Thad. Well, I ask my guests this question every week. I want to know something's got you excited about Star Trek at the moment. What's got you moving at Warp 10?
All right. Well, as of this recording, we are a couple days out from the release of the Lego Enterprise D.
Yes, that is Thanksgiving Eve.
And anyone who knows me knows that Star Trek and Lego are like my two biggest obsessions. So I am super excited. I'm ready to jump on there and buy that at midnight on the dot when it releases.
And have you picked out a place for it in your home?
Yeah, it's so big. It's probably going to go on the coffee table in my living room as like the centerpiece of the room.
That's very cool. What are you most excited about for the Star Trek Lego set?
Well, I mean, just in general, I love Lego. I love building Lego, but all those minifigs look fantastic, and I'm actually really excited for and one of the reasons why I want to jump on it immediately is the gift with purchase for a couple people that buy it is it's going to be that little shuttle pod with a Rolaren minifig. That looks really cool.
Well, don't eat too much turkey so that you don't fall asleep. Yeah, I think I'm also going to try and stay up until midnight on Thursday. I don't do well with staying up late, so unless I have a very strong incentive, and the Star Trek Lego set might be, but I want the shuttle pod because I've got all the other blue brick shuttles, and I think it would pair nicely with that.
It's not going to be perfect, like scaled like those.
Sure.
But yeah, it'll look good.
It's close enough. And so, yes, I'm looking forward to that too. And I have no idea where I'm going to put it or when I'm going to have time to build it. But I will have it, and that will feel good. Mm-hmm. All right, let me tell you what I'm feeling good about Star Trek this week. And that is the latest release, just put up for pre-order yesterday, from XO6. This being the Strange New Worlds Captain's Chair.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this is really cool. I mean, they've done a few captain's chairs, so I'm just looking to my left at my XO6 display cases. And so far, XO6 has made the Enterprise E captain's chair and the Enterprise D captain's chair. I have a few other captain's chairs, but those were not actually made by XO6. There's a fabulous vendor on eBay who makes some of the more esoteric sort of Star Trek diorama pieces that pair really well with the XO6 figures. But now they're doing the Strange New Worlds captain's chair, and this thing's really cool. I mean, not just because I actually think that the Captain Pike and Lieutenant Spock figures they have done for Strange New Worlds so far are probably in the top tier of XO6 figures in terms of the incredible likeness, just being a really high quality figure. The uniforms are really well made. The accessories are really, really nice. And so Pike having his captain's chair will be fun. And this captain's chair, it's got sort of it's the chair and then also the base piece. So it lights up when you plug it in, just like the other two that they have made are also plug in and light up. And this one, you can press a button to switch between normal settings and then red alert. And I don't know if you've ever noticed on the show, but when the ship goes to red alert around the base of the captain's chair, there's like a little LED strip that turns red. And then on this captain's chair, when you hit the red alert button, the lights change from white to red. Yeah. So it's very nice. It's very, very, very good piece. And, the XO6 figures are wonderful, but I also really like these sort of diorama pieces, both because they're just amazing pieces. I mean, if you just want a captain's chair to display, they've got a nice little collection of captain's chairs going with the Enterprise E chair, the Enterprise D chair. They have previewed they will definitely be doing the Wrath of Khan Enterprise chair. That will be released whenever their first Wrath of Khan figure is put up for pre-order. So they've got this nice little collection going.
Technically, haven't they already done Savick?
They have, the first, big member of the big three.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. So when the sort of big, when I think McCoy is supposed to be the first one they put up, when McCoy goes up.
Oh, that one's going to tempt me.
Yeah, then the captain's chair will go up too. So if you're an XO6 figure collector, this is on your radar. But if you're not, these captain's chairs are really fun display pieces, whether or not you have the figures with them. So check it out. I mean, obviously, I'll say, take it as read. These are not cheap. Not cheap. There are other more affordable options if you need that in your price range. I would recommend checking out they haven't done a Pike yet, but the Master Replicas action figure line. They haven't done much of anything yet, but
I've ordered a bunch of those Master Replicas action figures, but I am now hesitating to recommend them until at least one of them ships.
Yeah, I have a conversation with Ben Robinson coming up next week, and that's top of the agenda to talk about is the fact that Master Replicas hasn't shipped anything in a while. But there's also the Nacelle action figures. Obviously, you can't get a Pike that way.
I mean, they haven't shipped yet either, but they haven't passed any of their dates yet.
Correct. And they did do an update on Facebook a couple of weeks ago that said that the plan was for them still to arrive before Christmas. So whether that means they'll be in your hands or not by Christmas is unclear to me, but certainly
I did just order all of Wave 2.
Me too.
For all of those figures.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I ordered Wave 2, but this time I didn't order them through the Nacelle store because I didn't like the idea of paying for something like a year in advance.
Also, the shipping is killer.
And they use Shopify, which takes your money right away. So I ordered it through Big Bad Toy Store, which means they won't charge me until it's ready to ship. But yeah, so I pre-ordered the Strange New Worlds Captain's Chair. Would encourage folks to check it out. It's a very cool piece. All right. Well, with that, let's turn to the week's top stories.
There's a war going on, and I'm a reporter.
Well, a week after hearing that Paramount Skydance has moved on from the Kelvin Timeline cast as the crew for the next Star Trek movie, Deadline reveals that a new film is now in development. Writer-producer duo Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daley, whose previous work includes writing the script for the MCU movie Spider-Man Homecoming and writing and directing the 2023 Chris Pine movie Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, will write and produce and potentially direct the next Star Trek movie. Very little is known about the project, but reportedly it is to be a, quote, completely new take on the Star Trek franchise that is unrelated to any other franchise project. The previously rumored Star Trek Origins movie from Andor director Toby Haynes that was reportedly to have centered on the Romulan War appears to have joined the scrap heap of aborted attempts to get a Star Trek movie off the ground, alongside Quentin Tarantino's A Piece of the Action Redux, Noah Hawley's android-inspired intergalactic pandemic, the Chris Hemsworth return in the originally announced Star Trek 4 for the Kelvin Timeline crew that was supposed to have been directed by S.J. Clarkson, and the J.J. Abrams We Have Picked a Date in 2022 when the next Star Trek movie will come out, for which absolutely no details were ever revealed. And
which was announced in 2021, as I recall.
It sure was. Will Goldstein and Francis Daley's Star Trek movie end up moving into production, or will it join the ranks of unmade Star Trek movies? Well, only time will tell. But Paramount Skydance have ambitious plans to expand the number of movies released in theaters from the studio and have indicated Star Trek is a priority. Thad, how are you feeling about this latest turn on the Star Trek movie wheel?
Okay, well, I mean, at this point, I will believe it when I'm sitting in the theater watching it.
Right.
But I do think this one is more likely than some of the other ones. I mean, now we are in the Paramount Skydance era.
Yep.
So we've got different people at the top. we know Skydance produced all of the Kelvin movies. So yeah, I think we're actually going to get something at some point. I really hope it's this one. I don't know. I think we're definitely going to get another movie. Whether or not this one will do it or it will join all those other aborted attempts, who knows? But I am definitely optimistic if this one does go through. I did really enjoy Spider-Man Homecoming, and Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves was a really good movie. I was disappointed at how poorly it performed because I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, I really, really liked Dungeons and Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves. I was part of the crew that didn't go and see it in the theaters, so I'm part of the problem, yes. But I did watch it on Paramount Plus. I can't remember what inspired me to watch it because I'm not really like a watch movies at home person for the first time. But I did watch it at home and I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. And so, yeah, and obviously I'm a huge MCU fan. So even though Spider-Man very controversially is my least favorite of the Marvel characters, I did think Spider-Man Homecoming was a
all
good
the
movie.
Marvel characters, Spider-Man is your least favorite?
Spider-Man is my least favorite, yes.
Fascinating.
Even least favorite than Molecule Man and Stilt Man. Spider-Man sits right at the bottom. No, I'm just kidding. Of the major Marvel characters, of the Avengers, let's say. But Spider-Man Homecoming is still a great movie, and I thought they did some really interesting stuff, particularly with Michael Keaton's character in that movie and the Tony Stark Peter Parker relationship. For whatever you feel about that choice of sort of having Iron Man play such a big role in the movie, is a very interesting one from the sort of like Spider-Man perspective, and was a new angle for thinking about sort of the like Spider-Man dynamic.
And that is definitely something that has happened every now and then in the comics too. That didn't come out of nowhere.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So I am looking forward to this, and as you say, right, like if this were pre-Paramount Skydance and this was in Deadline, I would not have done a news story about it, just because what's the point?
You famously said you would never do another one. Correct.
And I decided to revisit and revise that for this one, even though there's no details about it, just because for the reasons you said.
Yeah.
Skydance are in control now. They do need to make movies in order to be successful. You know, part of the reason why I think the Star Trek movie had suffered over the last 10 years is because of the wider corporate sort of turmoil at Paramount. Questions about, you know, were they going to sell? Who were they going to sell to? Kind of sort of put the studio a little bit into not quite hibernation, but they were not taking risks. And a Star Trek movie is a risk because the last one didn't do very well. And so either you try and return to that formula and come up with something successful, which seems like they've decided they're not going to do, or you move in a completely new direction. And that's a risk too, because will people show up to the movies? Will the movie be good? Will people show up to the movies and watch it? Right? Like, these are all open questions for the Star Trek franchise that, like, it's not a sure thing at the current moment in time. But Skydance does need to expand the number of movies they're making. They do need to show investors and the market that, like, you know, this new team can really be a player in Hollywood. And Star Trek is still one of their biggest and most established intellectual properties that they can build a franchise off of. And so, I mean, I saw they just greenlit because the president told them they wanted to Rush Hour 4.
Yeah, that was a thing.
And it's like, okay, well, you know, I'm pretty sure that we can, you know, if we can get Rush Hour 4 into production, we can probably do the same with a Star Trek movie of some kind. And I'm excited about the sort of creators of this. And the last thing I will say is that I just hope that Jonathan shows up in the movie.
So, yeah, there's also the talk of Paramount Skydance wanting to buy Warner Brothers.
Yes.
So, I mean, and the one thing I hope never happens is that we get a Star Trek DC crossover movie.
Yeah, that would not be my favorite thing in the world. But stranger things have happened. Well, Star Trek Khan, the audio drama written by Kirsten Beyer and David Mack, based on a story created by Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan director Nicholas Meyer, and which was originally slated to be a TV pitch before pivoting to audio, is considered canon by the current leadership of the Star Trek franchise. Speaking to the TrekMovie All Access podcast, co-writer Kirsten Beyer, who is also a writer and producer on a number of the televised Star Trek shows, had this to say about the audio drama's canon status. Quote, okay, here's what I can tell you. Because I have had a few conversations, there is nobody who comes along and like waves a scepter and dubs a thing canon. What I can tell you is that for the people currently working on Star Trek Khan will be treated as canon, meaning it will not be overwritten or contradicted, and it will be, when possible, incorporated into future storytelling. And about whether there is the possibility for more audio dramas in the vein of Star Trek Khan, Beyer said she hoped so, but had no idea what would happen from here. I think there's an appetite for more from the people who made it. We are like, this was great, and we know how to do this, she said. But beyond that, I don't know. I do think it's too soon to have a real sense of what this really did for us, numbers-wise. Thad, did you enjoy Star Trek Khan, and how do you feel about the news that it is being considered canon by Secret Hideout?
So I had to confess, I have so far listened to only the first 2 episodes, but I am enjoying what I've listened to so far. I will say, I think it's kind of funny for Kirsten Beyer to say that no one comes along and dubs a thing canon, because isn't that basically her job at Star Trek, is to like keep this all the stuff straight and together?
I think it is part of her job, yes.
But yes, I like the idea that we have audio dramas that are part of the story and are considered part of the story. I do really hope we get some more. I think it's a fascinating medium and can tell a lot of cool stories with some familiar voices that we may never see on screen again.
Yeah, I obviously would really hope for more. It's funny, talking about whether Star Trek Khan is canon or not. As I was writing this story, I had that scene from Star Trek Insurrection in my head where Troy and Crusher are talking about the firmness of their boobs. And as Data walks over, Crusher says something like, not that we care about that in this day and age, right? You know, and it does feel like whether something is canon or not is very much like something that you shouldn't care about. It's not the cool or the done thing to do, but it is interesting from the perspective of like what contributes to the wider narrative. And, and I think it's perfectly fine that Star Trek Khan is canon, in my opinion. I mean, my sense of it is, in terms of my headcanon, there are probably pieces of it I would set aside and pieces of it that, I would incorporate into my personal version of the Star Trek story.
I mean, yeah, but that applies to every piece of Star Trek media.
Exactly, yes. Code of Honor is definitively out of the official Star Trek story in my mind. But I guess the more interesting question as to what determines its canon status or not is not what Kirsten Beyer says, but will there be an Infinite Diversity episode about it?
Yeah, we are planning to do one at some point. Christy and I have not yet listened to the whole thing, but once we do, we are planning to do an episode on the entire series.
Well, it's good. I mean, you're not kind of hunkering down for a terrible experience. It is an enjoyable show.
It's complicated because, at least for me, for listening to it, it's enough like a show that I don't want to listen to it in parts, like I would with a podcast when I'm out running errands or whatever. But it's also an audio thing, so I can't just sit down and listen to it. So it has to be when I have a time when I'm going to be listening for an hour to something, then I can put it on.
I had the same thing. There was a very specific circumstance in which I could listen to it. But other than that, like if I was just, and that was me going out and having a walk around the neighborhood because my phone was in my pocket and I've walked around the neighborhood 100 times. So like I'm not distracted by what's going on around me. But like at one time I came home halfway through an episode and, I sat down and very quickly 5 minutes had passed and I was not listening to it anymore. And I had to rewind and start back from the last moment I remembered paying attention. So yeah, I do struggle with it too. And so I was not as far behind as you are, but I did finish it. Or while it was playing, sort of 2 or 3 would stack up because it was like, oh, I gotta find the particular moment when I can listen to this.
Yeah, and because I listen to podcasts and audiobooks a lot, but for that, like I don't have a problem just stopping when I'm done doing whatever and just continuing on from that point. But with Con, it feels like I need to like listen to an entire episode at once.
Yeah. I mean, podcasts are the kind of thing where I can tune in and out of because, probably 60% of all podcasts, including this one, is mindless blather. So, it kind of
only 60%. That's generous.
It kind of doesn't matter if you're, like fully paying attention or not. Which is why I like podcasts as a medium so much. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I have the same problem with audiobooks. I can't, unless I can give it my full attention, I can't give it any of my attention. And that's why I don't really listen to audiobooks.
They're great for long road trips. So the next time I'm on a long road trip, I'll probably bang through the rest of Con.
Yeah. Well, this weekend, the Voyager Documentary team released a new statement about delays in releasing the documentary, which so far has only been released as a digital stream for backers of the project. The premiere events were a year ago, and then backers were sent a Vimeo link, I think it was back in June, so it's almost 6 months ago at this point, to access the documentary. Rather than pass the statement, I'm just going to read the statement so you can hear the Voyager Documentary's pretty thin explanation for all of these delays, but we will return to that in a moment. Okay. We are well aware of the continued questions about the status of the Voyager documentary, DVD and Blu-rays, and wanted to share an update. Up to now, we've been responding to questions individually and privately, as we've been in active and delicate negotiations with potential distributors. We didn't want anything public to jeopardize those conversations. That said, given the volume of inquiries, we felt it was important to provide a broader update, even though negotiations are still underway. Now that we've clearly seen where the market stands, based both on our direct experience and observations, we can share the context. Number one, fulfillment costs and inflation have had a major impact. Before even reaching the physical media stage, hundreds of thousands of dollars were spent fulfilling the back of perks promised during the campaign, including manufacturing and shipping. Since the campaign launched, production and fulfillment costs have risen significantly due to approximately 25% inflation, which affected nearly every line item involved in completing and delivering this project. These increases have had a substantial cumulative effect. Two, the physical media landscape has changed dramatically and very fast. For many years, we followed a model that worked reliably for our previous documentaries, but the physical media market has collapsed far more quickly than anyone anticipated. There are now very few distributors who will produce physical media, particularly for niche or documentary projects, and this has created a major bottleneck. Even completed high-quality films face steep challenges getting physical formats manufactured. 3, an unauthorized Voyager documentary has created marketplace confusion. An unauthorized all-archival Voyager video is circulating on YouTube, presented as the Voyager documentary you've been waiting for, with more than 1.2 million views. We have reported this to Paramount, but no action has been taken as of yet. Its visibility has added confusion at a very sensitive stage in distributor discussions. 4, Paramount passed on distributing the film. Paramount ultimately chose not to take the documentary. They require a 6-figure license fee before any wide release can move forward, which has added complexity to the path toward producing DVDs and Blu-rays. 5, negotiations are ongoing, and we are continuing to work towards a solution. Despite these challenges, we remain committed to finding a path forward. We are actively exploring every viable option and believe we are getting closer to a workable solution, though nothing is finalized yet. Once we have a confirmed plan, we will share a detailed update. We know this has been a long journey, and we truly appreciate your patience and passion. Your questions have not gone unheard. We've been responding one-on-one as they've come in, and we will continue to share updates whenever we have meaningful news to report. We want to avoid confusion with partial or premature information, but we will communicate promptly when there is confirmed progress. Thank you for sticking with us and supporting the film and the Star Trek community that made it possible. Thad, what's your reaction to the Voyager documentary team's explanation for the years-long delay in completing this movie?
Well, picture that gif of Captain Janeway rolling her eyes. I guess I can sympathize some for rising costs, etc., but a lot of these points don't really work for me from what I'm... Inflation, yeah, that's a problem. Physical media landscape changing, sure, but things are still getting physical releases, and I would have assumed... I'm not part of the industry, so I don't know for sure, but I would have thought that if you were a company that's making a documentary and most of your funding is upfront, which is what happens when you do a crowdfunding thing like this, that you would have secured your distribution partner before you actually made the movie. And Paramount passing on it, they did that with the DS9 one as well. It was distributed through Shout Factory, and probably the weakest argument is that there is a YouTube video called The Voyager Documentary. That's just coming up with an excuse.
Yes, I'm going to put a pin in my reaction to that until we get to the last segment of the show, because I have some things to say about the Voyager documentary. Having said that, though, I know you have seen it. What do you think about the final product?
I enjoyed it. It was not as good as the DS9 documentary, but I did enjoy it. They did have a few things that I didn't know. I thought they spent too much time with that zero-G stuff, but I wasn't sure what the point of that was. It had nothing to do with Voyager. It was just Garrett Wang in space.
Not even in space. He was at a regular flying altitude.
Right.
It is simulated zero-G created by the movement of basically the plane does. They go to great lengths to explain this in the movie. The plane flies on a parabolic course that basically means that for a period of time, it's sort of dropping straight down, and that creates the effect of zero-G within the cabin. So he didn't get anywhere close to space.
Right. Yeah, well, even if he was in space, it still wouldn't have had anything to do with Star Trek Voyager.
No.
So I that part felt completely unnecessary to me, but I did enjoy parts of the documentary. I look forward to maybe someday having a copy to put on my shelf that I paid for 5 years ago at this point. And but I thought it was fine, but it wasn't anything spectacular. It was not like the DS9 documentary, which I thought was really good. And I think the big difference there was the DS9 documentary, while made by the same company, Ira Stephen Bear was basically running that documentary.
Yeah.
And there was no one like Ira was doing any creative work on this one. So I think that made the biggest difference.
We will return to talking about the Voyager documentary momentarily. Well, and lastly this week, Star Trek Prodigy has been nominated for 2 Emmy Awards in the 2025 Children and Family Emmy Awards. In the category of Outstanding Writing for a Children or Young Teens Animated Series, the script for The Devourer of All Things Part 1, written by Jennifer Muro, snagged a nomination alongside episodes from Marvel's Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, Win or Lose, Gentry Chow versus the Underworld, and Goldie. Second, Trek legend Kate Mulgrew was nominated for her voice work as both Admiral Catherine Janeway and Hologram Janeway in the series, in the category of Outstanding Multiple Role Voice Performer in a Children or Young Teen Program. This is Mulgrew's first Emmy nomination for playing Catherine Janeway. She is also nominated for playing Red in Orange is the New Black. The awards will be announced in early March. Thad, how are you feeling about Star Trek Prodigy's Emmy Award nominations?
Oh, well deserved. I think I'm on record as saying that Star Trek Prodigy Season 2 is just amazing. And I think the Devourer of All Things is probably my favorite episode of all of Prodigy. So yeah, that's a great choice for nomination for the writing. And of course, Kate Mulgrew was amazing as Janeway. So no, these nominations are excellent, and I really hope that we get a win.
Star Trek Prodigy Season 2, for me, stands alongside Star Trek Picard Season 3, Strange New Worlds Season 2, and Lower Decks Season 2 as the best that the Kurtzman-era Star Trek has to offer in terms of a package of episodes. It's absolutely fabulous. Obviously, it was done extremely dirty, and and some of that is it being done dirty. Some of it is, even though it is a spectacularly high quality show, it just didn't find the audience that it needed in order to protect itself from being done dirty. And that's not the fault of the media landscape. That's the fault of Paramount for not really marketing it properly. But some of it is just it was not able to overcome the generational challenges of the Star Trek franchise, I think ultimately was the biggest thing it had stacked against it. And it's great. And I hope it wins these Emmy Awards because, it deserves that level of recognition, because it is not just a really fabulous Star Trek show, but it's a really fabulous show for children, in my opinion.
Yes, 100%.
All right. Well, we've talked about the facts, and now let's offer our opinions on the Star Trek franchise.
Your opinion has been noted. Anything further?
So as we transition from the news section to the opinion section, each week my guests and I will give you a Star Trek opinion, wish, or theory that we're nurturing that week about any aspect of the Star Trek franchise we want to opine on. So Thad, let's hear it. What's your big Star Trek opinion for this week?
Well, we just recently saw a announcement that there's going to be a WWE star in Academy.
Yes.
Which I thought was
Becky Lynch. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I think is like following the tradition of Sunkatse and that one Enterprise episode that wasn't very good. What was that one called?
Is it Big Roy or something? We played one of the Orions in the first Borderlands, the first part of
Borderlands,
the Soong trilogy in season 4.
Yeah. So I mean, as far as Orion episodes go on Enterprise, it was better than the other one. Anyway, yeah, I think that's great. I would like to see more interesting cameos in Star Trek. We used to get them in TNG. We had Stephen Hawking.
Yep.
We had Iggy Pop on DS9, and we get the occasional one now. Obviously, famously Stacey Abrams. But I think it would be cool if we saw that a little more.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're 100% right? The Next Generation also immediately pops into my mind. BB Newirth and Kelsey Grammer. Maybe because I'm in the middle of a Frasier rewatch at the moment, but like...
Because that was just being filmed next door, so it was easy for them to come over.
They were both huge stars at the time who were doing guest starring roles on Star Trek. I don't know the story about BB Newirth being on the show, but I mean, Kelsey Grammer is because he was a huge Star Trek fan and asked for a cameo. But like that sort of idea
similar with John Tesh, he also asked for a cameo, I believe.
Right. If you're a fan of Cheers and Frasier, and you find out that Kelsey Grammer is going to be on Star Trek: The Next Generation this week, do you tune in? Do you then go, hey, this show's all right, I might watch this again, and then you watch it again, right? You know, there was that sort of a bit less of Star Trek being, as a franchise, a walled garden that, you know, well, it's set in the future, and so, you know, I mean, I'm not saying that, I'm obviously not advocating for, like, the UPN executives who wanted a boy band in the mess hall of Enterprise every week during season 3. Like obviously that's not what I'm saying. But I think this Becky Lynch thing, I think the Stephen Colbert thing, you know, like...
Oh, I forgot about Stephen Colbert, of course, yes.
Like, that stuff's okay, right? Like, you know, it's not breaking the reality of Star Trek any more than BB Newirth and Kelsey Grammer are breaking the reality of Star Trek. And I think it does help the franchise because it does encourage people who are fans of these folks in their other endeavors to check out Star Trek because they like Becky Lynch or they like Stephen Colbert or they like Paul Giamatti or Holly Hunter, and hopefully then will stick around for the show itself. I mean, got to find some way to get more people to watch Star Trek. And
yes,
if stunt casting can work. So like it is something worth pursuing and considering and taking advantage of.
So our mutual friend Jen Tift, who has been on this show many times as well, tells the story that when Sunkatse aired, some people who were into wrestling watched it with her, and I think one of them kept watching it after that episode. So that's exactly the sort of thing.
It's exactly right. And yes, and The Rock being in Sunkatse is, I mean, that is a massive stunt casting moment, but it worked. It
absolutely worked.
And that's a good episode of Voyager. I mean, I remember in the run up to it, everybody moaning and complaining about, oh, they're really jumping the shark, you know, with the stunt casting, and this episode's going to be terrible, and The Rock's terrible. And like, yeah, I mean, he came on and did the people's eyebrow, whatever it is, you know, and, you know, this was before Dwayne Johnson, you know, had a thriving acting career.
Yes.
So it was still just Dwayne Johnson being a wrestler and doing the wrestler things, but now on a Star Trek episode. But the episode itself...
Sunkatse was, I believe, one of his very first roles.
I think it might have been his first role. I remember there was an interview where he credited Star Trek with being his introduction into...
He was in an episode of That 70s Show around the same time. Where he actually played his father, who had been a wrestler in the 70s.
Oh, that's funny.
So I'm not sure which one was first, but yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, it's like, you know, Sunkatse is a good episode, and the stunt casting, like now you watch it, does it really even... I mean... It still registers with me. It's The Rock, but or Kelsey Grammer being in Cause and Effect. Like, does it still register that that's the star of Frasier? You know, not really. It's Morgan Bateson. You know, or Linnell. It's not, I mean, it's BB Newirth, but it's not like, oh, Broadway legend BB Newirth. It's Linnell.
Right.
So yeah, like I'm in favor of Star Trek doing this. I think there's nothing wrong with it. And it has the potential to accrue benefits to the franchise as a whole.
Yeah.
All right, let's come back to talking about the Voyager documentary. I'll start off by saying, I think everybody connected to the Voyager documentary are nice people. I've interviewed Dave Zappone, seemed like a nice guy. Ryan Husk seems like a nice guy. I think he was a guest on this show once many years ago. Actually, I think maybe while the Voyager documentary fundraiser was going on. Lolita Fat Joe seems fine, right? Like, everybody seems like they're good, well-meaning people. They've really messed this one up. They've really messed this one up. Because let's just provide some context here. The Voyager documentary raised $1.3 million. That is more than double what the Deep Space Nine documentary raised for its fundraising campaign. And so it would not be unreasonable to assume that with double the amount of money, the project and production would have been more efficient, even higher quality, and reach for new heights. And the Voyager documentary has done none of those things. First of all, let's just talk about the movie itself. It's been 5 years since the fundraising campaign. It was also former guest of the show, Lee Hutchison, in a group chat that I'm a part of, who calculated that in the amount of time that it has taken the Voyager documentary team to make one 90-minute movie about Star Trek Voyager, the Star Trek Voyager production team made almost 6 seasons of the show and over 100 episodes. Kind of easy to forget how long of a time it has been since the fundraising campaign, but it's been a really long time. And in the early days, a lot of the things they were sort of saying by way of explanation was COVID and the impact of COVID. And, they recorded a bunch on Zoom and then they wanted to go back and redo them all in person. And, sort of just the pandemic had created all these challenges. Fair, fine. That was 4 years ago, generously 4 years ago, that we were moving out of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so that's still 4 seasons worth of Star Trek Voyager if we're using that as our benchmark for how much have other people made in this time. And a lot of the big promises that they made to generate that much fundraising have pretty much all fallen flat on their face. There is no high definition footage of Star Trek Voyager in the Voyager documentary. And to be fair to the documentary team, they said they always hedge their bets on that and said, no guarantees, we'll do the best that we can. But it was a big component of raising all this money.
They always couched it as they were really going to try. And the fact that this was coming off the DS9 documentary where the HD footage was a big part of that.
Yeah,
It felt a bit like they were leading us on with that.
It did feel a bit like that. And I do lay some blame at their feet for that. Some of that is us reading too much into it, but they let us read deeply into that. And then they went really quiet for a long time about whether the HD was going to be in the movie or not. And the movie came out for backers, and there is not a official on-camera confirmation that the HD thing didn't happen until a few weeks ago in some interview that the Voyager documentary team did, where they were nailed with the question, why is there no high-definition footage in this? That they gave the story about CBS has gotten rid of the film scanning equipment that allows for that to happen. And I'm sure there's a lot of reasons and all that stuff. That explanation holds pretty thinly for me, because there are lots of, we've seen remastered versions of Babylon 5 and Stargate SG-1, not exactly the,
I would not count Stargate SG-1 on there.
But it's still, it is an improved version of what there was before.
Okay, but that is an upscale. That was not, they did not go back to film with that.
True, But they didn't even upscale the Voyager documentary footage, which surely could have been an option when you have twice as much money as you did for the Deep Space Nine documentary. And that's what ultimately it keeps coming back to for me, is you raised twice as much money. You also made promises about the sort of like big hook for the documentary. So everybody was really excited about the Deep Space Nine writers' room, and the Voyager documentary team, again, to their credit, were very clear up front. We're not going to do Voyager season 8 writers' room, partially because it was Ira Stephen Bear who made that happen, and they didn't have, the Voyager documentary team themselves don't have the cachet to make that happen with like the Voyager writers' room team. But they said over and over and over again, we've got some great ideas for something that's going to impress you just as much. And they sent Garrett Wang up in a zero-G plane.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure was not cheap. Like,
Is that where all the money went?
I mean, I don't know, but like, I look at a plane like that, I look at Garrett Wang on it, and I think, gee, that must not have been cheap. Because these planes aren't easy to run. They require, extremely well-trained, talented people. I'm sure seats on those planes, because they're doing a lot of like science experiments for, space companies and technology companies. Like I'm sure seats on those planes come at a premium. And I would imagine, even if it was donated by the zero-G plane company, it's still not cheap to send Garrett to Europe in the middle of a pandemic and like have him go through all the preparations and all that stuff. Like it doesn't seem cheap. And but like, as you said before, that has no connection to Star Trek Voyager. Garrett Wang floating around in zero-G does nothing to help me appreciate Star Trek Voyager more, and actually does something to make me appreciate Garrett Wang a little less. As if that were possible. And now it's been a year since the Bacchus screenings. The stream came out for Bacchus 6 months ago. And the final project is okay. It's okay. But for a project that raised twice as much money from the Deep Space Nine documentary, it is not twice as good. And nor should it be twice as good, but it should at least be on par or slightly better with that amount of extra funding to work with, especially if you're not going to spend that money on doing HD, especially if you're not going to spend that money on licensing the Voyager music, especially if you're not going to spend that money on maybe even making the DVDs and Blu-rays. It's like, where did all this money go? Because it didn't end up on screen. It didn't. I mean, unless it's in the plane, then that was just the stupidest thing that they could have decided. And I think, to your earlier point, demonstrates that the Deep Space Nine documentary is such a triumph. It's so amazing from start to finish. It has a really coherent through line. It has really compelling elements to it, new stuff you'd never heard before. The season 8 stuff elevates it to the other level. And like, what's the difference between the Deep Space Nine and the Voyager documentary? Ira Stephen Bear's role in the Deep Space Nine documentary. Like, to the extent it seems like there was a special source that made that project successful, it was Ira Stephen Bear. And he obviously would have no involvement in the Voyager documentary because he had no involvement in Star Trek Voyager. And so the result is what the result is. Anyway, the bottom line is, I think I gave enough money for like a Blu-ray for the Deep Space Nine documentary and maybe a couple of t-shirts. I gave much more generously to the Voyager documentary when that came out. If 455 Films decides to do an Enterprise documentary, I'll be going back to a much reduced, much more moderate donation, because I don't think they earned the same kind of support from doing something like this again, given how many missteps there have been for this documentary project. And I hate saying all of this. And there is an element of, well, they're really nice people, so like, should we be critical of it? And I'm sure there are some people who are going to be like, no, you don't understand. Like, they've gone through all these hardships and we should continue to like sort of big them up and support them and be really kind and forgiving. But at a certain point, like, you've made a lot of missteps that it deserves to be called out. And the absolute lack of communication from the team has been really galling, particularly over the last 12 months. I mean, they've basically sent out an email 6 months ago to give people the Vimeo link, and then the email today, and really nothing in the interim to let the people who have supported the documentary and waited an incredibly long time for it to know what's going on and know what work through your challenges. That's fine. These projects always have challenges, and that's completely understandable, but they've delivered a product that is fine when they raised twice as much money as the previous product that was excellent, and have done it in like 3 times the time and with much less of the care and attention that they did the first time around. And I think that deserves to be called out, and it deserves to be criticized. So that's my feelings about the Voyager documentary.
Yeah, and I basically agree with that. I look forward to every once in a while I come on here and we say something and then we get hate mail, and I'm looking forward to that happening for this one.
Yeah, my guess is for the Enterprise documentary, maybe Dave Zappone will not want to come on Weekly Trek and talk about it next time. Do you have an opinion, theory, or wish about Star Trek that you'd like to share? Email them to me at weeklytrek@trekcore.com, and I might feature your thoughts on a future episode. Well, that's all the time we've got for this episode of Weekly Trek. Thank you so much to my guest, Thad Hait, for joining me today. Thad, how can people contact you if they want to continue the conversation?
The best place to find me is on Blue Sky. I am at tyrannicus.net. You can also find links to everything that I'm involved with on my website, which is also just tyrannicus.net.
And you can find the show on X at Weekly Trek, and me at Alexander T. Perry on X, and at Alex T. Perry on Blue Sky, and everywhere else. And if you enjoy the show, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast player of choice. And for all your Star Trek news needs, in addition to our extensive media archives of all things Star Trek, I hope you will keep your senses locked to TrekCore.com. Well, thank you, Thad. Thank you to all of my listeners. And until next week, live long and prosper. Weekly Trek is a production of TrekCore.com and owned by Trapezoid Media, LLC.